Hello friends, we are considering the failure of the material at high temperature, particularly during the creep testing. We are focusing now on the failure of the material. Now in the previous lecture, we saw that the failure of the material at high temperature is largely intergranular in nature. So the formation of crack and its propagation is largely confined to the grain boundaries. So the principal factor that contributes to this intergranular failure of the material at high temperature is the formation of cavities. Now in the lecture immediately preceding this one, we saw there are different mechanisms that govern the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. So one is the increased density or the number of vacancies along the grain boundaries, and when you have a lack, when this increased amount of vacancies is augmented or it is accompanied by a lack of diffusivity, then the increased amount of vacancies ultimately turn into the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. Now the other factor is the accumulation of stress. So there will be a pile-up of dislocation along the grain boundaries, and the interaction between this piling up of dislocation and the grain boundaries lead to the accumulation of stress, and beyond certain point there is an introduction of cavities along the grain boundaries. So this is another mechanism. Now the third mechanism we saw is the formation of grain boundary ledges, and these grain boundary ledges accompanied by grain boundary sliding leads to the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. So the grain boundary ledges are formed, or they might be inherently present or implicitly present within the grain boundary, or they can also be formed by the accumulation of stresses through the piling up of the dislocation. This grain boundary ledges introduces the plastic deformation in the neighboring grain, and when the grain boundary sliding lets in, then the movement of these ledges leads to the formation or the introduction of cavities. Now the final mechanism that leads to the formation of cavities is the triple junction wedges. So this triple junction wedges is the discontinuity or a cavity that is formed at the triple junction, and this could be because of the very nature of the triple junction, meaning the triple junction can be treated as the accumulation of Newtonian viscous material, and under an imposed stress condition at a high temperature, this material or the viscous material can rupture, thereby leading to the formation of cavities at the triple junction. The other mechanism by which the triple junction can act as the site for the formation of cavities, or a huge or a cavity of a significant size, is by the accumulation or the coalescence of the cavities at that specific point. So the coalescence can occur at the triple junction because in order for the cavities to move, or in order for the cavities to coalesce or to grow, they have to move along the grain boundaries, and this triple junction acts as an obstacle for their movement, and therefore they get accumulated at the triple junctions, thereby leading to the formation of cavities of a significant size or a triple junction wedges. So all these factors, which are largely governed by high temperature, so these factors are largely favored because of the high temperature, contribute to the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. And since the initiation of the cavities is along the grain boundaries, the growth of it, coalescence of it, and the formation of the cracks are all confined to the grain boundaries, and subsequently the propagation of the crack is also confined to the grain boundaries, and therefore at high temperature you end up having intergranular failure or intergranular fracture of the material. So this is what we saw in the previous lecture. Now in this lecture, let us consider the thermodynamical aspects of the formation of cavities. Now let us see what is the change in the free energy when you have the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. Now the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries can either increase the free energy or it can decrease the free energy. The factors that leads to the increase in the free energy is the creation of the new surface, in the cavities. So cavities are nothing but a miniature form of the fracture, and these cavities, they form a new surface that is in contact with air or a new material or new medium. So therefore, in order to create this surface, so when you have a cavity forming, it means that you are creating these two new surfaces that are highlighted in blue. So you are creating these two new surfaces. The creation of these two new surfaces, it increases the existing free energy. Therefore, you have an increase in free energy due to the creation of the new surfaces. Now the decrease in free energy is due to the stress relaxation. So we saw one of the mechanism for the formation of the cavities is the accumulation or the piling up of the dislocation. The piling up of the dislocation, it translates to the stress accumulation, and when stress accumulation leads to the formation of cavities, it means the stress in that region is relaxed now. So therefore, the overall free energy is reduced by this stress relaxation. So the stress accumulation, by creating or by inducing the cavity, ultimately relaxes the stress in that region. So one effect of the formation of cavities is the stress relaxation. This stress relaxation, so the decrease in the accumulated stress, then reduces the overall free energy density in the system. The other factor that reduces the overall free energy density is the decrease in the grain boundary area. Now, when you have the cavities forming along the grain boundary, so the initial grain boundary area, if it is of length L, say, and then you have a cavity that is forming like this, and it's, say, this length is L naught, then the grain boundary area is now reduced from L to L minus L naught. So therefore, the new grain boundary area is L minus L naught, which is significantly lesser than L. So thereby, the formation of cavities, it reduces the grain boundary area. So this ultimately contributes to the decrease in overall free energy density of the system. So what we essentially have is the formation of cavity not only increases the free energy of the system, but it also in certain ways decreases the free energy of the system. So one is through the stress relaxation, the other is through the decrease in the grain boundary area. The cavities which are formed along the grain boundary decreases the overall free energy density of the system. It increases the free energy density through the formation of new surface. Now it is important to note that this factor, this decrease in the energy density is possible only when you have the cavities forming along the grain boundaries. Now when you want to sum this up, when you want to have the cumulative effect of formation of the grain boundary cavities on the overall energy density, so you can write it in this manner. So the overall change will be the contribution from the surface area. So you will have a change in the energy density due to the surface area. So it will be positive, meaning it will increase the existing energy density of the system, and you have the change in the energy density or decrease in the energy density due to the relaxation of stress, and the decrease in the energy density due to the area of grain boundary that is replaced by the cavity. So it is the combination of the effect of surface area that is produced within the cavity along the grain boundary, and the relaxation of the stress, and the replacement of such certain area of grain boundaries with the cavity. So the combination of all these three will render the ultimate change in the energy density of the system. Now the surface and the grain boundary, or the surface area that is being produced within the cavity along the grain boundary, and the amount of grain boundary that is being replaced by the cavity, it depends on the shape of the cavity. So the influence of these two, it depends on the shape of the cavity. Now if we introduced a term or R as the radius of curvature that talks about, or that talks about the way or the dimension of the cavity, and we introduce an angle theta that talks about, or that in order to describe the shape of the cavity. So in order to talk about the dimension of the cavity, we introduce R. In order to talk about the shape of the cavity, we introduce this theta. So when we introduce these two, then the formation of the surface area can be expressed, or the shape that quantifies the surface area that is formed in the cavity can be expressed as R square and a function of theta. So this theta function here takes care of the shape of the cavity, and R square here takes care of the dimension of the cavity. And since we are considering the surface area, because where our focus is the surface area that is being formed within the cavity, we consider R square here, and this is the function that talk about the shape. Now theta here is nothing but the angle the cavity makes with the grain boundary. So this is our cavity, and this angle here is the theta. So this theta, it talks about, or a function, you can have a function based on this theta for a simpler case that talks about the shape of the cavity. Now what essentially you are doing is you are combining the shape of the cavity along with its dimension to render or to talk about the surface that is produced within the cavity. So now the contribution of the stress, or rather the contribution of the surface in increasing the overall energy density of the system is the product of the surface energy density of the cavity, which is gamma s, and the dimension of the cavity and the shape of the cavity. So we have R, this is nothing but surface area or energy per surface area of cavity. So this is the energy density of the surface area of the cavity. This is the R square that talks about the dimension of the cavity, and this is the term that talks about the shape of the cavity, f of theta. So now this is the factor that increases the energy density, the overall energy density of the system based on the surface area that is being created within the cavity. When you just focus on the surface area that is being created within the cavity, so these three terms quantifies the surface area and correspondingly increases the overall energy density of the system. So these three terms are the energy of the surface, or the energy density of the surface within a given unit area or within the cavity. R square is the dimension of the cavity, and f theta or fs of theta is it talks about the shape of the cavity. Now similar expression can be arrived for the contribution of the grain boundary to the overall energy density. When you have a cavity just this forming along the grain boundary, sufficient grain boundary is being replaced by this cavity, so that needs to be subtracted, and the expression that quantifies the grain boundary that is being replaced by the cavity is of this form, of the form similar to this. We have the grain boundary energy per unit area, or grain boundary energy density. We have the R square term that talks about the dimension of the cavity, and we should have a definite surface that is responsible for replacing the grind boundary area. So we should have a definite shape factor that replaces or that talks about the replacing a definite grind boundary region, because the overall surface of the cavity is not equivalent to the replacement of the grind boundary. So all these surface does not replace the grind boundary. Only a specific section of the surface replaces the grind boundary. So we have to have a separate consideration for the shape factor that governs the replacement of the grind boundary. So apart from this term here, even though the significance of this term is similar to the one that we see here, that is, it talks about the shape of the cavity, these two are not equal, because here we consider the overall surface area of the cavity, but here we just focus on the surface area or the shape that is responsible for or that directly replaces the grind boundary. So that is the reason we have a different shape function here, and r square remains the same, because again we are talking about the surface area, and here the sigma or gamma GB is nothing but the grind boundary or the energy density of the grind boundary that is being replaced. So this energy density of the surface area, it is being added, this is being replaced. And finally we have the contribution from the stress relaxation. So this contribution from the stress relaxation, it is dependent on not the surface area but the volume of the cavity. So we have an expression that looks like this. So we have a shape formulation or a shape function that talks about the volume of the cavity as a whole. We have r cube here, because that is how we quantify the volume of the material, and we have the normal component of strain, or rather the hydrostatic or normal stress. And this is because, as we have already seen, and when we considered the introduction of the creep failure, if you look back into this lecture, we saw that the stress component that is responsible for the propagation of cavities or the growth of cavities is the hydrostatic stress, or the formation of cavities is the hydrostatic stress, and therefore we include the normal stress term here. Now we have quantified the contribution of surface or the surface of the cavity on the overall energy density of the system, and we have also quantified or arrived at an expression for the role of the grind boundary or the replacement of grind boundary in bringing down the overall energy density of the system, and also we have arrived at an expression for the relaxation of the stresses that brings down the overall energy density of the system. If you combine all these expressions together, so you can write it the overall change in the energy density of the system as gamma is r square fs theta plus, or rather this should be minus, because while this increases the overall energy density of the system, the other two, they decrease the overall energy density of the system. So gamma r square fgb theta minus. So this is because of the relaxation in stress. This is because of the stress relaxation, and this is because of the decrease in the grind boundary energy. So decrease in the grind boundary area or the energy density per unit volume because of the grind boundary, and this is because of the formation of new cavity surfaces. So while these two, they decrease the overall energy density, this increases the overall energy density. Now when you compare the contribution of, so this is because of the formation of new surfaces. When you compare the contribution of the new surfaces and the stress relaxation with that of the decrease in the grind boundary area, or then the decrease in the grain boundary area, the contribution because of the decrease in the grain boundary area is less than that of the contribution that is introduced by the stress relaxation, and it is also less than the contribution that is offered by the new surface area formation. So even though there are these three components that are responsible for the change in the overall energy density during the formation of cracks, it is predominantly the relaxation of stress and the formation of the new surface that govern the formation of cavities, that govern or that dictates the overall energy change during the formation of cavities. So even though there are three different contributions, so there is one contribution that increases the energy density of the system. There is the other two contributions that increase or decreases the energy density of the system. It is largely the relaxation of the stress and the formation of the new surface area that governs how the overall energy density of the system changes. And therefore, when you want to talk about the factors that play a significant role, it is the relaxation of the stresses and the formation of new surface area. So these are the two factors that govern or dictate the formation of cavities. Even though the disappearance or the replacement of the grain boundary plays a role, these two factors are the dominant ones. So once we have identified the factors that play a dominant role, then we can graphically represent how the overall energy density of the system changes with the size of the cavity. Now we can plot the overall change in the energy density of the system with the size of the cavity. So this R, it denotes the dimension or quantifies the dimension of the cavities. Now for this discussion, we are ignoring the shape factor. For this representation, which are ignoring the shape factor, which can be the surface shape factor or the relaxation shape factor. We are ignoring this. We are just talking in terms of R here. And when you plot this, the role or the relation between the change in the overall free energy density and the dimension of the cavity is proportional in case of the surface area that is being produced is proportional to the power of 2. So the relation looks something like this. However, when you compare the change in the overall energy density to the relaxation of the stress, it is related to the cube of the dimension. This is because the relaxation of the stresses is related to the overall volume of the cavity. So therefore the influence or the influence of the stress relaxation on in decreasing the overall energy density of the system will be of this form here. So this contribution of the stress relaxation, it decreases the overall energy density, while the contribution of the newly formed surface, it increases the overall energy density of the system. Now let me plot this in a larger scale. So what we are essentially doing is we are plotting the influence of the size of the cavity on the overall energy density of the system. So we have a quadratic relation here because this is the influence of surface area, and with increase in the surface area, the overall energy density of the system increases in this manner to the power of 2. This is the influence of the relaxation of stress, and this relaxation of stress is proportional to the power of 3 as it is governed by the overall volume of the cavity. Though the combination of these two renders the resultant influence of the size of the cavity on the overall change in the energy density of the material. So when you combine these two, the resultant gives you the influence, the combination of these two gives you the resultant influence of the size of the cavity on the overall change in the energy density of the system, and therefore the resultant curve would look something like this. It will look something like this. So this is the resultant curve. The red is the resultant curve, and it talks about the influence of the size of the cavity on the overall change in the energy density of the system. Now there is a peak in this curve, and the R corresponding to that peak is referred to as RC. So it is the critical size. So RC is the radius that pertains to the critical size, or you can directly refer to as the critical radii. So this is the critical radius, and this corresponds to the critical size. So what we mean by the critical size, or why are we interested in this peak, is because after this peak, the combination of surface area and the relaxation of stress, meaning after this peak, the energy that is added up to the overall system because of the formation of the new surface area within the cavities, and the stress that is being removed because of this cavity, the resultant of this decreases the overall energy density of the system. So that means beyond this point here, above RC, you would have stable cavity. So when the size of your cavity is greater than RC, then you would have stable cavities along the grain boundary. So this is because, as you can see, the resultant between the increase in energy density because of the surface area and decrease in energy density because of the relaxation of the stress, this combination of these two decreases the overall energy density beyond RC, and therefore when the size of the cavity is greater than RC, you would have a cavity that is stable, that will not disappear with time. So this cavity is energetically favored because you are decreasing the overall energy density of the system. So beyond RC, you are decreasing the overall energy density of the system with a cavity of size R that is greater than RC. Now instead of that, when your size RC, or when your size of your cavity is less than RC, then you would have unstable cavity, because this cavity, it increases the overall energy density of the system. Therefore such cavities are not energetically favorable. So if you want to talk about the individual contribution below RC, it is the surface area, or the contribution of the surface area, that is dominant. The relaxation of stress, it is not sufficient to counteract the surface area that is being produced below RC. However, above RC, the surface or the relaxation of stresses is sufficient enough to counteract the formation of the surface area and reduce the overall energy density of the system. So therefore, below RC, you have unstable cavity formation. This cavity will subsequently vanish off. Above RC, we have the stable cavity that is forming because the cavity is large enough to sufficiently relax the stress that counteracts the surface area, and thereby reducing the overall energy density of the system. Now, this based on this curve, this point here can be quantified as, this is the absolute maximum. So we can quantify this point as the first derivative of the curve. So that is the change in the overall energy density of the system with respect to the dimension of the cavity at, or rather at point RC is equal to 0. So based on the nature of the curve, it is possible for us to arrive at this expression, that is at point RC, given that it is the maxima, the first derivative is equal to 0. So when you use this and have, so you can use this consideration in this expression here. So in this expression, we have included the different contributions of the surface area, stress relaxation, and the grain boundary replacement. And now we are exclusively focusing on these two, that is the contribution due to the surface area and the stress relaxation, because they are dominant when compared to the reduction in the grain boundary area. And we are now taking the derivative of this expression with respect to R. So we are taking the derivation or the derivative of these two factors here. We are considering the factor that is relevant to or that associates with the formation of new surface and the factors that is associated with the stress relaxation, and we are taking the derivative with respect to R. And when we do that and we consider the definite expression for the shape factor. When we assume a simpler shapes, assume a simpler shape and have corresponding shape factor descriptions for the shape factor that is associated with the formation of new surface and the shape factor that is associated with the relaxation of stress. When you make such assumption, the assumption that is manageable, and then you take the first derivative of this expression that considers only these two terms with respect to r, the first derivative with respect to r, and equate it to 0. So when you take the first derivative with respect to r, then equate it to 0 and make an assumption that is easy for us to handle. The reason I'm suggesting or including all these points in here, because I'm not going to derive the whole of it. I'm not going to consider a definite shape. I'm not going to bring about a function for that shape and then solve the whole of the derivation. That is the reason why I'm telling what are the operations that goes into arriving at the final expression. So the final expressions that we will be seeing in a moment, it includes assuming a definite shape functions for both the surface area contribution and the stress relaxation contribution, and then substituting this surface shape factor into the overall formation, taking the first derivative of it and equating it to 0, you arrive at an expression that looks something like this. So it is more or less equal to twice the energy density of the new surface that is formed within the cavity and the normal stress that is relaxed with the formation of the cavity. So when you take the first derivative of the expression that quantifies the change in the overall energy density of the system. So this expression, it talks just about the formation of surface and the relaxation of the stresses. These two components you consider and you take the first derivative of it and equate it to 0. In addition to that, you assume the shape factor that are fairly easy to handle. Then you arrive at an expression for the critical radius. So this critical radius can be quantified in this manner. So the overall derivation is not necessary at this point. If you are interested, you can reach me. I can send you the documents wherein the overall derivation is being made. So here we have an expression for the critical radius of the cavity. So below this critical radius, you have the cavity vanishes, and above the critical radius, you have the growth of the stable cavity. So below this critical radius, the cavity is unstable, particularly the grain boundary cavity is unstable, and above the critical radius, the grain boundary cavity is stable. And as you can see, the critical radius is directly proportional to that of the surface area, meaning when the surface energy density of the surface, when it is dominant or when it is higher, you need the cavity of a very larger shape or very larger size. And similarly, or in contrast, the stress or the critical radius is inversely proportional to the stress that is being relaxed. So when you have a large amount of stress that is being relaxed, it is sufficient to have a cavity of a very small size. So the critical radius or the size of the cavity is directly proportional to that of the surface area or the energy density of the surface that is being produced, whereas it is inversely proportional to the stress that is being removed from the system. So when you have a huge amount of stress that is removed from the system, then the radius of the cavity or the size of the cavity or small size of or the cavities are of small size are stable when you have enough stresses that are removed from the system. However, when you have a very high energy of the surface, then you need a cavity of a significant larger size in order for it to be stable along the grain boundary. So this relation, this talks about the influence of the surface area energy or the energy density of the surface of the cavity and the stresses that are being relaxed with respect to the size of the cavity. So it talks about, this relation talks about the influence of the energy density of the surface and the stresses that is being relaxed on the size of the cavity. Now, when you substitute this expression or this relation of the critical radius onto this expression here. When you substitute, when you replace R by RC and then substitute this particular expression here, and within the consideration of the shape that is easily handleable for us, that we can easily handle, then you would end up with an expression for the critical change in the energy density. So the critical change in the energy density, when you substitute all these expressions, will be of this form. 4 So when you substitute this critical radius onto the overall expression, and then you define a setup, or you ensure that your shape is handleable, you define or you describe such a shape, then you would end up with an expression that looks something like this. This expression, it quantifies the critical change in the free energy density, or critical change in the energy density. So this is what we have quantified by substituting RC. So this is the point that we have quantified by substituting RC and then having a function that we can easily handle. Now it is important to note that even though we have assigned the functions that can be easily handled, this expression is included here because this is the activation energy that needs to be overcome in order to have the a stable cavity along the grain boundary. So this is the activation energy that needs to be overcome in order to have a stable cavity along the grain boundary energy. Therefore, even though you might have a different shape, it is possible for us to have a conserved shape or a different shape with a conserved volume, and that is the reason why explicitly the function of the relaxation component is given here. The shape factor function that is associated with the relaxation of stress is given explicitly here. This is primarily because even though the shape might vary, it is possible to have a conserved volume that is able to decrease, or that is able to relax the stress along the grain boundaries, and that function is included here. So what we essentially have is, by quantifying the critical change in the energy density, we have arrived at an expression for the activation energy that the growing cavity along the grain boundary that needs to overcome in order for it to be stable. So what we mean by that is, whenever you have a nucleation of cavities along the grain boundaries, the nucleating cavity should get over this activation energy for it to be stable. So this activation energy is again governed by the energy of, or the energy density of the surfaces that are being formed and the stresses that are being relaxed. So when you have the cavity that is being formed that has a higher degree of energy density, then the activation energy significantly increases. And when you have a significant relaxation of the stresses, then you would have a significant decrease in the activation energy. So whenever you have the formation of nuclei along the grain boundary, when this nuclei of cavities is able to overcome this particular energy barrier or this particular activation energy, only then that nuclei will be stable. If not, that nuclei will disappear. Again, this nuclei can be circular or any shape. It is irrelevant. The shape that is, or that the factor that is absolutely is relevant is associated with the relaxation of the stress, because relaxation of the stress is what ensures the stability of your nuclei, and that is the factors that is much relevant than the shape that is being formed when you consider the activation energy, and that is why it is included here. So in this lecture, what we have seen is, to wind it up, we have seen, or we have considered, the change in the overall energy density of the system when you have the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. So this overall change in the energy density of the system, it comes from the formation of the new cavity surfaces. This new formation of this new cavity surfaces, it increases the overall energy density of the system. However, given that this cavity occupies the grain boundary and the formation of this cavity means the certain area of the grain boundary is being replaced, so there is a decrease in the overall energy density of the system, meaning by the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, there is a decrease in the overall energy density of the system because you are replacing an existing grain boundary. In addition to that, the relaxation of the stresses that ultimately leads to the formation of the cavities, also it decreases the overall energy density of the system. And now when you consider all these contributions, one contribution that increases the overall energy density of the system, the other two that decreases the overall energy density of the system, we see that the contribution of the grain boundary or the replacement of the grain boundary is less pronounced than the contribution of the formation of new surface and the stress relaxation. And therefore, when we want to quantify, when you want to have a criteria to decide if a cavity will be stable or unstable, we consider just the two contributing factors, that is the formation of new surface and the stress relaxation. And now when you do that, you see that with the increase in the formation of new surface, the overall energy density of the system increases. So this one corresponds to the surface and this one corresponds to the relaxation. And with relaxation in the stress, the overall energy density, it decreases. Now when you combine these two and plot for the resultant change in the energy density, you would see that there is a maxima beyond which the overall change in the energy density begins to decrease. So that means beyond the maxima, the cavity that is being formed is stable. So we quantified this maxima and we arrived at an expression for the critical radii of the cavity. So above the critical radii of the cavity is stable and it's allowed to grow. However, below it, the cavity is unstable and it will no longer grow. Now, based on this expression for the critical radii, we calculated the change in the energy density that needs to be overcome for the cavity to be stable, and the expression for that energy density or the change in the energy density is this, and this energy density, it acts as the barrier or the activation energy that needs to be overcome by the cavity in order for it to be stable along the grain boundary. So with this, I would like to wind this lecture up, and in this upcoming or in the next lecture, we will be focusing on this particular cavity formation along the grain boundaries, but we will be building on this to understand what is the rate of the nucleation of these cavities along the grain boundaries. So what we have seen is largely confined to the grain boundaries because that is where the cavities are formed at high temperature. So let us build on this in the next lecture, wherein we will be talking about the nucleation rate of these cavities along the grain boundaries. So let us see ourselves in the next lecture. Goodbye.